Good evening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your dinner. My name is Amy Porter. I'm graduated from Notre Dame in 2014, and I have the honor of serving as the Notre Dame Alumni Association Board of Directors President. It's so wonderful to be with you all tonight to celebrate our two distinguished award recipients. Established in 1985, the Reverend John J. Cavanaugh C.S.C. Award is conferred on an alum who has performed or has performed outstanding service in the field of government, patriotism, public service, local, state, and/or national politics. Our 2024 Cavanaugh Award honoree, J. Martin Regan Jr., better known as Marty, truly embodies Father Soren's vision to be a force for good. Since 1978, Marty has utilized his combination of creative legal approaches, thoughtful analysis, gentle demeanor, deep understanding, tireless promotion, personal courage, and profound humanity to contribute to the welfare of his hometown, Memphis, Tennessee. After graduating from the University of Notre Dame in 1976, Marty earned his law degree from the University of Tennessee in 1978. He then returned to Memphis to begin working for what is now known as the Lewis Thomason Law Firm, where he has practiced ever since. Regan serves as the senior staff attorney to the city of Memphis, general counsel to the Southern College of Optometry, and general counsel and planned giving director to the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis. He is also the director of the Memphis Grizzlies Foundation, a Memphis Landing Bank Incorporated, and Alpha Omega Veterans Service Incorporated. Among these many professional and volunteer accomplishments, Regan has been a trusted advisor to many mayors, bishops, and numerous non-for-profits, offering and providing pro bono legal services. He has worked across racial, religious, and social divides to serve the poor, improve the civil fabric, and foster the provisions of medical services and education, among many other amazing worthy causes. Marty was nominated for this award by 5 of his classmates from 1976, all of whom are here supporting him this evening. Their nomination, which included a 71-page supplemental document highlighting Marty's many accomplishments, truly demonstrated the profound impact that Marty has had on his local community and the friends and loved ones in his life. Those connected with Marty's work describe him as the personification of the authentic servant leader and the most selfless guy you'll ever meet. In the 11 letters of recommendation that were provided with his nomination, one noted that they have lost count of how many nonprofit launches in Memphis go to Marty for early advice and the formation of their organizations. His service literally can't be measured or quantified because it has been given so freely and so abundantly. This unbelievable civic service is matched only by his humility. Marty was also described as the living example of God's goodness and love for a neighbor, an example of true faith and dedication. We are thrilled to welcome so many of Marty's Notre Dame classmates, friends, and loved ones here this evening to celebrate this truly loyal son of Notre Dame. On behalf of the Notre Dame Alumni Association, it is my honor and privilege to welcome and present to you the 2024 Reverend John J. Cavanaugh C.S.C. Award winner, J. Martin Regan Jr.
Thank you very much. As you heard, I go by Marty. I'm class of 76. I first want to thank Dolly Duffy, Amanda McKee, and Amy, and you, the Notre Dame Alumni Association, for the honor and for what you do for the university. I also want to congratulate Kristen tonight for her being the honoree of the Foster Award, and thank you, Charles DeSauer, for the beautiful invocation you gave tonight. I think things always seem magical on this Notre Dame campus anytime I come here, and especially when there's a gathering of people in a beautiful place like this. And so I just thank you sincerely, the Alumni Association, for not only the honor, but for what you do to promote the University of Notre Dame in the community. You might have noticed there are a lot of Southerners here tonight. I thank my guests who traveled from Memphis to be here. There are many that traveled from actually all over the country, gave up their vacation, gave up time with their grandchildren to be here, and I'm sincerely touched by that. When I was much younger, I was shy and barely talked. Unfortunately, promoting nonprofits, I've developed this habit of talking until I'm told you need to stop. You've already said your message, so anyone who wants to give me a sign at any time, feel free to. But I really want to talk about three things tonight. The very first one is those who brought me here. And that is, you see them among us, these 5 roommates of mine. We had a tough class in 1976. How would you like to graduate with Mike Apfeld, who was the first valedictorian to graduate with a 4.0 in 10 years, who put all of this together? He finally shared it with me 3 months after he submitted it, and I thought, is that for the Supreme Court or is this a joke? But Mike does everything with that vigor. And in addition to him, he seemed to archive my life with the other housemates, and that's the unique thing about Notre Dame. The 6 of us have been close since we came in 1972. All of us, Father Hesburgh was the president. We were in the midst of the Vietnam War. Many of us were having ping pong balls pulled to see, are we going to go to Vietnam or not? We had Nixon as president, who finally came out and said peace is at hand. But just very interesting times, but all of us throughout the 4 years had different disciplines, different studies, but we have stayed tight, and I think the nucleus is University of Notre Dame that has kept us together. I've told you a little bit about Mike. The other was Tim Scully. We thought Tim graduated early, 6 months, because maybe we offended him, but he graduated as the valedictorian of that class. And he went on to start the ACE program that sends teachers throughout the entire country. Raised hundreds of millions of dollars for the ACE program. I got involved with the ACE program through my Catholic bishop in Memphis. We reopened 9 inner-city schools, and we could not have done it but for the Notre Dame connection. And again, what this was Catholic education, preserving Catholic education to keep it affordable and accessible to the inner city. And again, it could not have happened but for Tim. And Jim Keegan, who's here, who rose to be executive vice president of IBM. He is very humble, but he always has been just the greatest guy, part of the glue among us. And Mike Laird, who's here, and I refer to him as a brainiac. He was an electrical engineer. We never knew what he was thinking, but he talked about things like the Mars Project and a lot of things that he just were classified and couldn't tell us about, so I can't brag on him. And then Bob McDonnell. And Bob became governor of Virginia. More importantly, among us 6 people, Bob's got 5 kids and 8 grandchildren. He's beating everybody, and he's still going. So, again, I take my hat off to this crew that nominated me. I'm humbled by it, and I'm embarrassed that any one of them should be up here. And I don't say that just to be humble, but it was a great group of people, and I think it's Notre Dame is the common glue to all of that. The second thing I'd like to talk about, and I alluded to, is the importance of Catholic education and where University of Notre Dame stands in the forefront of that. That shaped who I am with the desire to serve. It's something that we have feared could be eroding with the closure of inner-city Catholic schools. It's something that the ACE program in Notre Dame has been in the forefront, helping bishops, helping dioceses. A little more background about me. I had Dominican nuns in grade school. They were mean as hell. I had Christian brothers in high school, that were mean as hell. I just thought religious people were mean as hell. Then I came to University of Notre Dame. They're all nice. They all wanted to educate you. And I really got a completely different picture of how it can work. And, you know, one of my first years, as a lot of people here, we had Father John Dunn. People would just die to be able to go to John Dunn classes, just this mysticism, and people from all over still ask, whatever happened to, et cetera, et cetera. I became a philosophy major at a time when it no longer was a requirement, but we still had the best faculty, the largest number, and the education I got as a philosophy theology major could not have been matched by any other institution. I know Father Sheedy, who had a tremendous impact on Tim Scully, had a huge impact on me, and just things that those of us who were exposed to the faculty and the leadership of Notre Dame will carry for the rest of our lives. There was another professor I was talking to Tim about some time ago, Joe Evans, and he was another brainiac philosophy professor, and he had this hair parted in the middle and just looked like he was floating on a different planet, but always walked the campus with a New York Times and talked to you about philosophy. And oftentimes I would meet him in the snow on the quad, and he'd say, "Marty, are you wondering or are you wandering?" He died, and I don't know the answer to that. And so if I seem confused here, maybe someone can help me. But that's the type of education we had, not just in the classroom, but on the campus with the professors, living and learning and feeling nurtured. And I think that's helped form the desire to serve, is that nurturing that we received and want to give it back. I really do think the Notre Dame education is the backbone to my desire to service. I'll give you a little more history of how Notre Dame served me. Personally, as I was a student, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer. I was told, "You probably can't afford to go here." And I thought, I'm a burden to the family. I talked to a professor, then I came home one day and they said, "There's a priest who called for you, wants to see you right away." It was Father Wilson, Jerome Wilson, and he was the finance man here, and he wanted to, this is before cell phones. So I walk over to the administration building, walk in, he hugs me. I thought I was going to be told, "Well, thank you for your service, sorry you can't pay the bill." And he says, "Were you related to John Regan of New York?" And I said, "No, Father." He says, "Well, too bad, he left a lot of money here." He says, Tell me about yourself." And I said, "Well, there's not much to say. I'm from Memphis." He goes, "You're a Southerner." And we went through and we pieced together scholarships. And I was just amazed I could stay. Then I'm walking out and he says, "What are you going to do for pizza money?" I said, "Father, if I get tuition, I don't worry about pizza money." He says, "No, you need pizza money." He gave me a graduate student job in the library where I became a lead guy on microfilm microtext, something no one's ever heard about before. But I was a philosophy theology major with a graduate student job in the microfilm room with no one else there, with my own desk. And in those days, no one had ever heard of a computer. I had an electric typewriter with correction tape on it. I don't know if you know what that means to a philosophy student who has a typewriter with correction tape, but it sure was high cotton, as we called it in the South in those days. And so I tell you that story because it showed me that as much as we think we're invested in Notre Dame invests in us in certain ways where they meet you where you are and where your needs are. And I think we'll never forget that in our lifetime. I've had the good fortune as a journey in my life to meet extraordinary people, and I think it's really been the Notre Dame background that has made me attracted to those type people, and maybe that's what's attracted the people I've been involved with. And of course, being a philosophy major, what do you do when you graduate? I mean, do you go and work for a city? You know, what do you do? It really was the foundation of a way of life. and I'll give a little bit of background now on what I do. I became a lawyer. I graduated from UT, went back. My very first client was Bishop Carol Dozier, Catholic Diocese Bishop. He was a magnetic person who was liberal, wanted to change the world, wanted to feed the hungry, wanted to clothe the naked, wanted to build housing for the poor, and we started out building elderly housing, low-income housing, handicap housing, and that really, with each housing project, we had to form a separate HUD, which was called a 202 nonprofit. So I became kind of the nonprofit guy. And if you're a nonprofit guy and you're pro bono, you have as much work as you'd ever want, but it gives you threads throughout the backbone of the community. And it was through that I became known as the pro bono guy. And one of the guys who came here is Robert Lipscomb. Robert was a young Holiday Inn loaned executive with a top degree from Chicago working in finance. And his job from Holiday Inn was to seek me out and get a tax exemption status that the Holiday Inn securities lawyers could never get. We got it in a month, I think, Robert. And so we go to this board meeting, and I'm the young attorney. We need a president, a secretary, a treasurer, a board, and we had Mike Rose, who was head of Holiday Inn. We had the governor. We had some high-powered people. And I take my pen out, and I'm ready to take names. Who's going to do what? We're going to be honorary trustees. Not one of them wanted to be on the board. So it turned out Doc Harrington, who was our African-American school superintendent, about 6'9", and just a marvelous person. Robert Lipscomb as a loaned executive from Holiday Inn, and me as a pro bono lawyer, ran Memphis Partners that tried to help inner-city African-American kids stay in high school and get to college and better themselves. And lo and behold, that head of Memphis Partners, Mayor Harrington, became our city mayor in 1990. And his first appointment was to make Robert his head of housing and community development, and became head of our housing authority. He became CFO to the city. And through that, I want to tell you some of the things we did that helped rebuild downtown. I was told we had 6 months to close a $150 million UDAG loan. UDAG is Urban Development Action Grant. And at the time, there had been riots in Los Angeles. We were told, if you don't obligate this in 6 months, President Bush is going to take this money and give it to LA. In 6 months, we brought AutoZone downtown, we redid our Peabody Hotel, we rebuilt the downtown area, and that was just the start. And through this, there are a number of things we did. We brought a baseball team from St. Louis and built a stadium downtown that brought people back. We kidded with Dolly. She didn't realize that we have the world's largest Bass Pro downtown. And there's a long story to that. I mean, Amanda is the one whose son wants to see Bass Pro. But we ended up taking our Pyramid, which is a 40-story theater, former basketball place for university, and converted it into the world's largest Bass Pro. Again, that was kind of a start. We rebuilt the downtown with other grants. We worked with a Notre Dame classmate friend of ours, Vincent Ravishere, who at the time was with the nonprofit Help USA in New York. And we got the country's largest grant for homelessness. And through our diocese, helped rebuild 5 or 6 shelters and went on. And it was really that nonprofit nature that drew attention to these 2 wonderful donors that contributed, I'll say, well over $100 million to our inner city schools to reopen Catholic schools. And through that, they said, we really need to heal the city of Memphis. We don't want to do this to make money. We want to do it for racial harmony and to bring togetherness. Let's get a pro team. And so we set off, and they put me and a friend, Gail Rose, head of what we called the pursuit team, and we went after a basketball team. And we were told Charlotte Hornets is putting the gun to the head of Charlotte. If you don't build a new arena, we're leaving. we'll build a new arena. Why don't you? Well, that didn't work out. Lo and behold, we recruited the Vancouver Grizzlies. And the interesting thing about that is my friend Gail and I were nominated as Sportsman of the Year, which we won in the local newspaper for recruiting the NBA basketball team to the city of Memphis. I had never been to a basketball game in my life. And everyone asked me, oh, you went to Notre Dame. Were you the quarterback? And I said, no, but I was the best damn librarian they ever had. And, you know, that's sort of a flavor of how good things can help you, and not just what you give to others, but you get it back in spades. Just one or two other things. When we look at the poverty, we look at these problems. I got involved with the Paulist Fathers in the city of Memphis. And I said, all this poverty, all these children, how do you go to sleep at night? And this wonderful Father Gainey was head of Catholic Relief Services. And he said, you know, I spent 3 years in India, and this little nun comes in every day singing. I said, sister, all this poverty over here, you come in here singing? And she said, Father, you just take 1 acre at a time. You do the best you can for that 1 acre, and then you go on. That's how we've worked with Memphis, 1 acre at a time, and bit by bit, other people pick off acres, and it really has been a wonderful collaborative of people in the nonprofit world, in the business world, in the world of philanthropy, working together. One last story. I got involved with the Howard Baker Institute at University of Tennessee. And for those of you who may know, Howard Baker was a wonderful Republican senator from Tennessee whose father-in-law was Senator Dirksen from Illinois. And when he was a young senator, he got on the floor and he said, I'm really going to impress my father-in-law. He went on and on and on, and when the speech was over, he called him Dad, even though it's the father, and says, so Dad, what did you think of that talk? And the dad said, let me give you a bit of advice. The best thing you can do is be an eloquent listener. And what I want to be an eloquent listener, I'm going to shut up now and let us hear from Kristen as your next recipient. Thank you very much for the honor.